That's the other part the Eagles like about Jalen Hurts, and they've said this pretty consistently. He's improved every year.
Yep.
You rarely see a player without ebbs and flows. And, sometimes they have a good year, sometimes they have a down year, career year. It's like an EKG. It goes up and it goes down. Jalen's gotten consistently better. Even when he got benched, he got better and at Alabama. And the Eagles like that part. I think long-winded way of answering Derek's question. Yeah, I think they're starting to say maybe we have something in Jalen Hurts. Let's build around Jalen Hurts.
All right, Sports Take is back. We're still trying to recover from the first 2 hours of this program. He's Derek Gunn. He's Barrett Brooks.
We did talk about F1 racing today, too, now.
We talked about everything. Bears, Brawley.
These comments are hilarious, man. I'm telling you.
A lot of run. That's for sure, Sports Take. All right. You can see him each and every morning right here. JAKIB Media YouTube Network does a phenomenal job along with Jody Mack. Birds 365 show, of course, SI Now, Philly Voice. He's all over the place, man. You can't stop John McMullen. You can only hope to contain him.
Right.
And John, I don't know if you're listening to any of this, man, but good luck. I don't know what you're walking into here. I'll be honest.
Yeah, I see D Gunn. Look at that. What's going on? What have I missed?
I don't even know if you want to know some of the stuff that's going on, man. It might
man.
Yeah.
You probably don't want to know, man.
It's been quite interesting. Barrett's been sharing stories. Career-wise,
oh my goodness!
Things that,
well, I know how that goes. Then
yes.
I know some of those Barrett stories.
It's not as bad to what they picked. I mean, they act like I gave a lady a standing ovation, and ever since I got so much trouble for it.
Yes,
my boss, she jumped up. She almost. Oh my goodness! Man, it is what it is, man. I mean, what do you want me to do? What do you want me to do?
All right, well, John, let me ask you, man. You just look at what the Eagles did over the weekend. I know you've talked about it, written about it, quite a bit. But there was some risk involved, certainly with Davis. There was some risk involved with what you gave up for AJ Brown. There was some risk involved with the Kobe Dean. You drafted a center/guard, whatever that looks like a future pick, could be very soon in the future. What's your assessment overall of what they ended up doing?
Well, I think the first round was great. I mean, anytime you can get two difference makers, and I think it was, Friday where Nick Sirianni was so excited when they got Nakobe Dean, but I think more so from his perspective, and he said it with AJ Brown. It's not about projection. He knows. We already know what this guy can do. Everybody else is talking about projection with their first round picks. I mean, AJ Brown is proven. So what you're getting there. It was bold, 9 figures. We all know how NFL contracts work. It's basically 3 years, about $57 million, but really, really significant money for AJ Brown. And look, we've been talking about the need for a veteran wide receiver for this team since they tried to trade for Calvin Ridley. And then came Christian Kirk, who was too expensive, and Allen Robinson, who wanted to play for the Super Bowl champions, and Robert Woods. And guess what? After all the hand-wringing, they get the best of the bunch anyway, by far. They get a better receiver than those 4 guys. So you have to love that. I think Jordan Davis is a very unique player. I mean, he is going to be a handful for opposing offensive centers and guards. You got to block him with 2 people, and that opens up everything for the rest of the defensive line. Half of the Nakobe Dean highlights, guys, watch Nakobe Dean highlights and then take your eyes off Nakobe Dean and look at who's in front of him. And it's usually Jordan Davis tying up 2 blockers, enabling Nakobe Dean to get to the football. So first round is great. And that's what it's about. It's about finding difference makers. And I think the Eagles probably got 2. I know they got 1, and they probably got 2.
Well, I'm not going to give the athletes we just drafted. Let's look at Howie. and how he approached this draft. I thought he's listening more and not trying to be the smartest guy in the world in the room. He went out and got two guys that were the best players on the team that, eventually, that you look at them, they won a national championship. So you got two of the best players in college football, period. These are things that are just, all right, I'm not trying to be the smartest guy in the room. I went out and got proven talent. You know what I'm saying? Is he listening to everybody? He's listening to, his scouting department, his coaches. I think that's a major shift, a major change in how his philosophy, how he approaching the draft.
Yeah, I wrote about that in Philly Boys this week. I think there's a huge difference between Howie Roseman 1.0, as I call it, and Howie Roseman 2.0. So if you go back to when he was exiled, when Chip won the power play, and really all he won was the rope to hang himself, really, if you look back at it. I think a lot of people don't know how he got a raise. He got a new title. And he was given a travel budget by Jeffrey Lurie, and he went around the world. He went to England, the United Kingdom, to talk to Manchester City. He talked to Brian Cashman. He talked to R.C. Buford. Successful.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, successful executives in other sports to learn, how they built these cultures, and that's what he was doing when he was on the other side of the building, so to speak. And, he says it wasn't with the intent on coming back to be the Eagles GM, but ultimately he wanted a second chance to be a GM somewhere else. And I think he learned and he grew from it. But to your point, Barrett, I think he's more comfortable in his own skin. Like, he doesn't give a you-know-what anymore. So, like, I can criticize him. D. Gunn can criticize him, Rob, Barrett, everybody's like, all right, whatever. I got one. So now I'm playing with house money. And it is interesting. Sometimes it's easier to make things simpler. So you look last year and he gets Devontae Smith and Landon Dickerson from the national championship and national champions, and you say, oh, that worked. And this year it goes with Jordan Davis and Nakobe Dean. Sometimes it simpler is better.
Yep.
All right. So let me ask you this then. How much more pressure do you think has now been put upon the young shoulders of Jalen Hurts now that he has an A.J. Brown to go with a young core of skilled players around him now? A.J. Brown enhances the overall group, period. But we know what Devontae Smith can do. We have an idea that Quez Watkins has the potential. A.J. Brown is a proven commodity. Backfield stable of young backs, and an offensive line, one of the best offensive lines in the game. How much more is that increasing the pressure upon Jalen Hurts now?
A lot. It's funny what one domino does. Everything else falls into place, right?
Yep.
Because you have a legit wide receiver one, and now you have Devontae Smith, who arguably is going to be a wide receiver one at some point in his career. A little bit of the pressure taken off him. Now as a two, he's got the potential to be really dominant. So you had some concern with Quez Watkins, probably not ready for that wide receiver two role, but as a number three, you say that's pretty good. You got a guy who can run by anybody. He's not going to see many double teams at all.
Right.
You got a top 5 tight end in football. I think we're all in agreement there. Dallas Goedert has proven himself to that level. They certainly have a top 5 offensive line. You could argue it's even higher than that. You got Miles Sanders on a contract year. I know the Eagles are very high on Kenny Gainwell as a third down back, as that receiving back. What more could you ask for? So, last year you could, and I don't want to call them excuses. I call them explanations, but you could say, all right, Jalen didn't have this. Jalen didn't have that. This year, those aren't there. You got A.J. Brown, you got Devontae Smith, you got Dallas Goedert right there. Those 3 receivers. That triangle, you aren't going to find many better on paper around this league. So I put it had Paul Domowitz on Birds 365 the other day. I put it at 6 games. We're going to know about Jalen Hurts. Damo went to about 8 or 9. So midseason. All right, I'll go to midseason. You're going to know. You're going to know because look, you have to be able to be a high-powered passing offense with that triangle of receivers. And that's what Nick Sirianni wants. That's where the NFL is going. And you can't be run first. I'm not saying you can't win games that way because you can certainly win games that way. But the margin of error is so small. If you can't be down 10 points in the fourth quarter and come back throwing the football, you're going to have a difficult time going where you want to go.
Yeah, and John, obviously this is hypothetical, sort of on paper, till we get into when it gets real here. But how much did they improve themselves here? How much better are they now than when the season ended? Are they in competition with the Cowboys now to win this division? If you throw Washington in there, throw New York, whatever. Where do you think they are right now in terms of what they've done from where the season ended?
Yeah, I think they're better. And certainly the Cowboys have come back to them a little bit, so that helps as well. I think they've gotten a little bit worse from a talent perspective, losing Amari Cooper, even Cedric Wilson. They've lost Lyle Collins, so they have to start rebuilding the offensive line. So they've come back a little bit. The Eagles look much better. We just talked skill position wise in what the A.J. Brown domino. Defensively, their front seven looks really, really good.
Yes.
Now, the secondary, we got some issues. You still need a corner, an outside corner. You could argue you need 2 safeties, to be honest. I think Marcus Epps is the best safety on this team right now.
I think so also, but what do you think of, I really think they have a lot of confidence in Zach, being Zach McPherson, being that guy, just from how they approach this offseason. What are you thinking about that?
Yeah, I don't agree with that. I always say with the Eagles, don't listen to what they say, watch what they do. So they wanted to sign Marcus Williams at safety, for instance. They weren't able to get it done. The price got too high. They bowed out. At corner, they wanted to sign Stephon Gilmore. I don't know how deep they didn't want to go. They wanted a budget deal. Same thing with Tyrann Mathieu for that matter. But they're interested in these veteran upgrades. To me, they're in the same spot they were last year when they drafted Zach in the 4th round. You remember, if we were talking last year at this time, the Eagles were like, well, we're going to go with Zach. We're going to see what he can do, talked him up. And then 2 days before training camp, Steve Nelson shows up. First practice, he's starting outside corner opposite Darius Slay. They're going to get a veteran at some point at corner to play opposite Darius Slay. I think they're going to get a veteran at safety as well. Could be the trade market. But they still have more things to add on the defensive side, particularly in the secondary. If the Giants, and there's been a lot of talk in New York, they're going to be forced to release James Bradberry. Eagles should get in on that right away if he hits the open market. And I got a feeling that's going to go really, really quickly because Bradberry can still play.
That's an interesting name. Now, John, what do you make of the Herbig thing where he gets released and, on the heels of just signing him to that tenure, you free up some money. Obviously, will that play into what you're talking about here? You're trying to make a move. Why would you do this now, the timing of it?
Yeah, I think they were just trying to do Nate a favor, to be honest. And they have a good relationship with his agent, Ken Sarnoff, who kind of, tweaked him in that direction as well. The writing was on the wall. They're so deep on the offensive line. It's when you look around this league, I think Eagles fans are a little bit spoiled when it comes to the offensive line because there are a lot of teams that are. This is an offensive line, and Barrett can tell you this. This is an offensive line deficient league as a whole. There are teams that can't find starting level tackles have been, I look at Seattle and Minnesota specifically because they've made a lot of playoff appearances between the two of them over the past decade, and they haven't been able to find an offensive line for 10 years. And the Eagles are rolling out backup after backup, and Jeff Stoutland deserves a ton of credit for this. I'm a little surprised the Eagles were trying to trade Nate, and I'm a little surprised they didn't get at least the 6th, 7th round pick because he's played well. But timing hurts there as well because this is the time of year where everybody's drafting guys, and Barrett can talk to this as well. They're like, oh, this guy, we're going to pencil this guy in. And then they get him out there in August and they say, oh, he's not ready.
Right.
And then they start talking. That's what happened with Matt Pryor last year. You remember the Eagles got a 6th round pick for Matt Pryor in August. People in Philadelphia are like, Matt Pryor stinks. The Colts love him. I mean,
he's starting right now. He's penciled in as a starter.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm talking about. That kind of spoiled nature. And Nate,
Big V.
Yeah, Big V's another one. Big V got a ton of money in Detroit.
Got paid.
Five for 50.
Yeah.
Also look at people look at me like I'm crazy when I say Dillard. Dillard is actually a starting.
Oh man, Andre's going to be starting left tackle in 2023. I guarantee it.
No question. I
guarantee it. And if you saw Andre got himself in really good shape.
Yes.
Really,
looks like a Tarzan now.
Yeah. But I think the Eagles see value in Andre Dillard for this reason. The biggest concern with a backup is you got to have versatility. And Andre doesn't. But the Eagles have the luxury of knowing Jordan Mailata can play either side. Like Jordan doesn't care. Tell him to go right tackle, left tackle. He doesn't care. So same thing happened last year when Lane had to leave the team with his anxiety issues. And Jordan was healthy at the time before he got hurt. They just kicked Jordan to the right side, put Andre at left tackle. So it's not as a big a concern for the Eagles as it would be for typical teams because they know Jordan Mailata can play right tackle if need be. So Andre's valuable to this team.
John, A.J. Brown came out and said that basically his good friend Jalen Hurts went to the organization and said, hey, you got to bring A.J. in here. And lo and behold, they went out and did it. Now on the outside looking in, as I talked about earlier in this show today, we were of the mindset that, hey, the Eagles aren't giving him enough to work with in 2022. They could be setting him up to fail so they could move on. But the fact, if it is true that they actually listened to Jalen Hurts, who is still an unproven commodity in the NFL, and brought in A.J. Brown, maybe they hold him in higher esteem than we've given them credit for. They're trying to do everything possible to help this young man succeed, which would help them make some definitive decisions about the quarterback position beyond 2022.
Yeah, it's interesting because I'm writing about this on Sports Illustrated today, D-Gun. And, there's this narrative, and I brought it up myself on Birds 365, so I'm not killing other people, but there's been this narrative that receivers don't want to play with Jalen Hurts because he's not a high volume passer, and wide receiver is the most, I joke, it's the most selfish position in sports. The next receiver you meet that doesn't want the football will be the first. They all want the football at all times. But so there was this narrative because the Eagles couldn't get this receiver. But if you look at each individual situation, right? Ridley, he got suspended, had nothing to do with Jalen Hurts. Christian Kirk got $19 million. The Eagles were like, Godspeed. We're not paying you that. Had nothing to do with Jalen Hurts. Allen Robinson wanted to go play for the Super Bowl champions. Understandable. Had nothing to do with Jalen Hurts. And then Robert Woods he was given an opportunity by the Rams for whatever reason to pick his destination. He wanted to go to Tennessee, had nothing to do with Jalen Hurts. So all of these individual situations, and then it ends up in the end, they get a better receiver.
Yep.
Because he wants to play with Jalen Hurts. And it has to do with their personal relationship, and they got to know each other when Alabama was recruiting Brown before he went to Ole Miss. And then they just became friends, and they've been friends ever since. Jalen was at AJ's daughter's birthday party last week. When he got drafted, he was there. They've been friends for a long time. I just think it's ironic that for all this talk about nobody wants to play with Jalen Hurts, he got the big fish. He got the Eagles the big fish. He was the reason why. Now, ultimately, does that matter moving forward? I don't know. But I will tell you this. This team is not going to be in a position to get Bryce Young or CJ Stroud.
Yeah, that could be bad enough. They're not going to be bad.
Yeah, they're not going to be bad enough.
Yep.
So you better start building around Jalen Hurts.
Mm-hmm.
Van Dyke from he's going to move. Mark my words right now. This May 3rd, he's going to move up through the ranks. Watch what I tell you. He'll be the next Matt Carroll.
And we've been talking to some draft guys, and there's talk about 5 quarterbacks. He's one of them, Barrett, that are going to be in the top 15. So maybe, but do you really want to start over? That's the other part the Eagles like about Jalen Hurts, and they've said this pretty consistently. He's improved every year.
Yep.
You rarely see a player without ebbs and flows. And, sometimes they have a good year. Sometimes they have a down year, career year. It's like an EKG. It goes up and it goes down. Jalen's gotten consistently better. Even when he got benched, he got better. And at Alabama, and the Eagles like that part. I think long-winded way of answering Derek's question. Yeah, I think they're starting to say, maybe we have something in Jalen Hurts. Let's build around Jalen Hurts.
John, I agree with you in terms of the perception of Jalen Hurts moving forward. But I would also say this too. If the Eagles, you just said that they're not going to be in a position because they won't be bad enough next year to move up to get that quarterback. I don't put anything past Howie, because if Howie wants a quarterback bad enough next year, we saw him do it with Carson Wentz. The way he can package this, that, and the other, if he wants a quarterback bad enough, he'll find his way up that draft board to get the quarterback that he wants. Not saying that he will based on what Jalen does this year, but if he wants him bad enough, he'll get him.
No, I hear what you're saying. Howie's good at the valuation stuff. If you go all the way back to pre-draft in the trade with the Saints, I'm still trying to figure out what the heck Mickey Loomis was thinking. But so ultimately, if you look at, the Saints got Chris Olave. They essentially got Chris Olave for 3 picks in the early 100s, a 2023 first-round pick, and a 2024 second-round pick. Now, Chris Olave can turn into Devontae Adams. I don't think he's going to. Right. But ultimately, if he does, I will still tell you it was bad, maneuvering by Mickey Loomis, because what you gave up for a player you didn't have to give up for. So to me, that's always going to be a bad trade. One thing nobody can criticize Howie Roseman for, or nobody should, is the valuation of assets. You can criticize him for evaluation, but man, he's good at valuing assets and what they're worth.
John, how can Nick Sirianni, Shane Steichen, whomever you want to throw into that mix, how do they put Jalen Hurts in the best position to succeed, to improve upon what we saw last year? Obviously, you gave him A.J. Brown, which is a big help. But how would you like to see them go about getting him to be a little bit more consistent throwing the ball?
Well, I think the problem with Jalen to date has been not trusting his reads and being a little slow when it comes to processing and being a little late on throws. Now, if you want to put a positive spin on that, Rob, you could say, well, he didn't trust his receivers. And I can believe that. And in theory, he started to really trust Dallas Goedert late last season. And, we know he trusts A.J. Brown, and he's going to trust A.J. Brown. So, also add Devontae Smith into that mix. What we talked about before, there's no more excuses. I mean, these guys are good. These guys are high-level players. There's no reason not to trust them. So if he's still slow, if he's still not trusting what he sees, then you have an issue, I think. One of the knocks on Jalen was he's got to throw to open receivers. He doesn't throw. You always hear great NFL quarterbacks will throw receivers open. These are tight windows. Is he going to throw with that anticipation? These are some of the things that the Eagles are going to be looking for. It's not necessarily, Jody always asks me, Jody McDonald, give me a number. It's not numbers. It's about what he's supposed to do. When is the ball supposed to come out? Does he trust it? That kind of stuff. And if Nick Sirianni sees that, he's going to be really happy.
Well, looking at let's shift from talking about Jalen, because we know Jalen. I mean, he's going to get better. Is it good enough for them to extend him to a contract where he's going to be making upwards of $40 to $45 million? We'll see, but that is the going rate for a starting quarterback in the league. So if they think that that's something they would pony up to, then so be it. But looking on the opposite side of the ball, with them going out and get Jordan Davis, them going out and get Reddick, they got the kid from Kansas. He was a defensive end at Kansas, but he's a rush end. And with Jordan Davis being in the middle, do you see them going and moving to a 30 front more so, with a lot more frequency? Not saying it'll be their base defense, but going to it a lot. Having him there will allow you to go to him a lot, and as they go forward.
Yeah, I mean, Jonathan, JG, John Gannon has, talked about, he's a multiple front guy. So to him, it's not about 30, 40, whatever. He wants to, you think about how he uses the Sam linebackers. Sometimes they have 5-man fronts. Sometimes it's 5-2 look. But one thing he wanted, and he has wanted, is that 0 or 1 technique, and that's Jordan Davis, the big nose tackle. Think Vita in Tampa. Javon isn't good at it. Javon's a 3 technique. Fletcher's a 3 technique or a 5 technique mainly. Milton, is a pure 3 technique, or you can move them outside. They didn't have that big body in the middle to tie up blockers. Now they have it. That JG's been asking for it. He wants it. That's the player he wanted. Now he's got it. So we're going to see how he utilizes it. But he can do so many more things, because last year they had such difficulty stopping the run. For all the talk about Javon Hargrave, how he was great as a pass rusher, but he was really bad against the run. Really bad. And the Eagles were in too many 3rd and 2s, 3rd and 3s, 3rd and 4s. If you got Jordan Davis on first down, boom, 2nd and 9, 3rd and 8, get him off the field. A lot of people have said, is a 2-down player worth it? Does he have to play 3 downs? I'll tell you, B2B is worth it.
No
if
question.
I'm getting B2B, and you're always in 3rd and 7, and then he can leave the field and you can kick Brandon Graham inside, for instance, and use that big NASCAR package with all these pass rushers, Hassan Reddick, Josh Sweat, Fletcher Cox, whether it's Javon or Brandon. That's pretty good. So that's the plan, and we'll see if it works out. But you want 3rd and 7 or above, and they had too many 3rd and shorts. That was the issue last year.
John, great stuff, man. Always love watching you and Jody, Birds 365, right here, JAKIB Media, YouTube Network, and catching your work, Philly Voice, SI Now. I mean, you name it. He is all over the place. Always a fun and interesting listen. John, thanks, man. Thanks for a couple of minutes today.
Appreciate you, bro.
Guys.
Appreciate you, man.
Take care. It was good stuff there by John. I particularly tail end of that, just to pick up on that, guys. Even if he's not a complete pass rusher in that first year, if Jordan Davis is killing it against the run, just occupying tackles, you know, what that's going to do in blockers, what that's going to do for others around him is, to me, can help this team immeasurably.
He's definitely going to do that, you know, because, I mean, he made it a point, you know, when you're in 3rd and 2, you know, that opens up the playbook for the offense, you know, immensely. You know, you can throw it, you can run it, you know, with high probability you're going to make the first down. But when you're in 3rd and 7, 3rd and 6, 3rd and 8, 3rd and 9, because you stop the run on 1st and 2nd down, it just gives the autonomy now to really, if you want to send a blitz, you can send a blitz, knowing that's a lot of chunk yardage you have to get, with it being, you know, 6+. I mean, it just changes, you know, it puts that playbook from this big to like this big, because there's not a lot of plays where you can get yourself out of those type of predicaments.
Right.
So that's for that, and him having the, you know, the ability now to throw multiple fronts and multiple packages towards offenses. That's a big deal. That's a huge deal for this defense.
No doubt. All right, we come back. We're going to hit a bunch of different things in open talk. Among them, Phillies are back in action. We'll swing it back to the Sixers. Flyers update on their interim coach. We're going to talk about Urban Meyer, believe it or not, is back in the news.
Yeah.
So we got a lot of things we will hit, including the Eagles as well. Barrett Brooks, you want to say something? Go ahead.
You mean we haven't hit a lot of topics already today?
Yeah, you know what I mean? We're like a box of chocolates, man. You never know what you're going to get, so don't go anywhere. All right? Sports Take.
Oh, man.
JAKIB Media YouTube Network.